Hey everyone, and welcome to my B&B Glow channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Luna exposes Bridget and Katie for faking DNA results, Bill furious, the bold and the beautiful. See? Bill's voice boomed, filled with smug, unshakable victory. I told you all. No more speculation. No more whispers in dark corners. Science doesn't lie. The Spencer bloodline is secure. This ends now. He gestured grandly to the papers, a king displaying his royal decree. The assembled family, Ridge, Brooke, Steffi, Liam, watched with a mixture of relief, skepticism, and weary acceptance. The drama, it seemed, had finally reached its tedious, predictable conclusion. It was at this moment of absolute, arrogant triumph that Luna, who had been standing quietly near the terrace doors, a phantom in the periphery, stepped forward. She had been invited as a mere formality, a courtesy to the woman who had been at the center of the storm. But she did not look like a passive observer. She looked like an executioner. Her face was calm, her eyes held a terrifying, preternatural clarity, and in her hands, she held a simple, unassuming manila envelope. "Science doesn't lie, Bill," she said, her voice not loud, but clear and sharp, cutting through his bluster like a scalpel. "You're absolutely right about that." A flicker of annoyance crossed Bill's face. "Luna, this is a family moment. The adults are speaking. You've seen the results. The matter is closed." "The matter is far from closed," Luna replied, her gaze sweeping over Bridget and Katie, who had both gone deathly pale. "Because those results," she said, pointing a steady finger at the papers on the table, "are a masterpiece of fiction. A very expensive, very convincing, and utterly fraudulent lie." A stunned silence crashed down upon the room. Bill's smirk vanished, replaced by a confused, dawning fury. "What in the hell are you talking about? That report is from a certified lab. It's notarized." "Bridget," he snapped, turning to his sister-in-law, "you oversaw this yourself. You verified the chain of custody." Bridget opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes were wide with pure, unadulterated terror. Luna didn't wait for her to form a lie. She opened her manila envelope and began to lay out her own documents on the table, right next to the forged ones. "This," she said, tapping a sheet, "is the real DNA analysis, conducted at a rival lab, using a second, secured sample that a certain worried obstetrician, who values his medical license and his freedom, secretly preserved. It shows a 0% probability of paternity. Will is not the father." She let that land, a bomb detonating in the center of the room, before continuing, her voice cold and precise. "And this," she placed another document down, "a record of wire transfers, is a trail of payments from an offshore shell company, ultimately traced back to Katie Logan, made to a disgraced former lab technician with a known history of forging legal documents. Payments for a very specific, very lucrative service." Katie let out a strangled gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's a lie. Luna, you vicious little." "And this," Luna overrode her, her voice rising now, filled with a righteous, furious energy, "is a sworn affidavit from that same technician, detailing how he was hired, how he created the fake report, and how he was instructed to make it airtight, to withstand any superficial scrutiny. He names his primary contact. Dr. Bridget Forrester." The room erupted into chaos. Brooke cried out, "Bridget! No!" Ridge shot to his feet, his face a thundercloud of disbelief and betrayal. Liam looked like he'd been physically struck, his head whipping between his aunt and the woman he once loved. But Luna was not finished. She saved her most shocking, most devastating revelation for last. She looked directly at a hyperventilating Katie. "You did it because you were desperate, didn't you, Katie? You saw Bill's obsession with the Spencer heir, you saw his growing closeness to me and the potential of my child, and you were terrified. Terrified of losing your son to this scandal, terrified of losing your own standing, terrified of losing the power and money that comes with Bill's favor. So you went to Bridget. You exploited her love for this family, her desire to protect Will from more pain, and her medical authority. You convinced her that this was the only way. That a lie was kinder than the truth. That you were saving everyone. She turned her piercing gaze to Bridget, whose professional composure had completely shattered, leaving behind a weeping, broken woman. And you, Bridget. A doctor. You took an oath. You swore to do no harm. And you used your knowledge, your reputation, your access, to perpetrate one of the most harmful, destructive frauds imaginable. You didn't just fake a paternity test. You falsified medical and legal documents. You conspired to permanently alter a child's identity and a man's life for a lie. You betrayed the very essence of who you are supposed to be. The full, horrifying truth was now laid bare. It wasn't a simple mistake or a lab error. It was a cold, calculated, premeditated conspiracy by two of the women Bill trusted most, one, his former wife and the mother of his son, the other, a respected doctor and family member. They had looked him in the eye, they had used their positions of trust, and they had constructed an elaborate, expensive lie to manipulate him, his fortune, and his legacy. Bill Spencer did not shout. He did not roar. The fury that consumed him was too vast, too profound for sound. It was a silent, nuclear winter that froze the very air in the room. His face turned a frightening shade of purple, the veins in his neck and temples bulging. He looked at Katie, the mother of his child, and then at Bridget, his own sister-in-law, and in his eyes was not just anger, but a bottomless, soul-crushing sense of betrayal that dwarfed any business double-cross or romantic infidelity he had ever experienced. He slowly picked up the fake DNA report, the document he had brandished just moments ago as his ultimate vindication. He looked at it, then at the two trembling women. His voice, when it finally came, was a low, guttural, and terrifying whisper, vibrating with a promise of utter ruin. You, he seethed, his eyes locking on Katie and Bridget. You lying, scheming witches. You didn't just lie to me. You tried to architect my life. You tried to dictate my legacy with a forgery. He crumpled the paper in his fist, the sound shockingly loud in the dead silence. You have no idea. No idea what you have just unleashed. Your lives, as you know them, are over. The shocking DNA reveal was complete. But the real shock was the source of the forgery, the devastating, personal betrayal from within his innermost circle. The battle lines were no longer about paternity, they were about vengeance, and Bill Spencer, the most dangerous man in Los Angeles, had just been given the justification to burn two of his own family members to the ground. Will and Electra reunite, Luna surprises Finn. Brooke and Ridge were floored that Luna was alive and taking up residence at Bill's house. They found it disgusting what Luna did to Will, especially with the implications that he fathered her unborn child. Back at Forrester Mansion, Electra received a text from Will, but she still wasn't ready to respond to him. They were remembering moments between each other, but she couldn't bring herself to respond to him. However, Luna was riding high, talking to her baby Bump. She told her baby that he or she would get the chance to have a real relationship with its father, something she never had. Poppy made a surprise visit to Finn's office at the hospital, but he had no interest. Poppy told Finn, "We are bonded for life. We had a daughter together." However, Luna's return from the grave will impact them soon enough as word spreads about her revival and pregnancy. Brooke expressed gratitude that Taylor was already aware of Luna being alive. Everyone was worried about Steffi eventually finding out because of how badly she suffered as a result of Luna's obsession with Finn. Poppy asked about Finn, and he proclaimed Steffi's exit from Los Angeles was important. Poppy alluded to things being easier now that his family didn't have to worry about Luna anymore. Luna read a book to her baby, telling it that it's the size of a grape, despite beginning as a poppy seed. Luna recognized the irony in the name Poppy, referring to her mother as mean, old grandma. She couldn't contain her excitement about eventually telling Finn about the baby she's carrying with Will. Electra continued lamenting to herself about the state of her relationship with Will. She flashed back to key moments in their relationship. Will was at Forrester Creations, desperately wishing to get any semblance of communication from his heartbroken love. Ridge was still adamant that Bill was the primary reason for the situation everyone is in. If Bill hadn't pulled strings and gotten Luna pardoned, Liam wouldn't have been shot, and Will wouldn't be facing the toughest situation of his life. Ridge told Brooke he had to take peace away from Steffi. Brooke, however, was equally concerned about the toll the news would take on Finn. After trying to put this behind them for so long, this would be a devastating blow. Poppy never expected Luna's life to meet such a grim end. She couldn't understand how Luna would walk around with a gun, but Finn stood his ground. He recalled the string of crimes committed by Luna, specifically kidnapping Steffi. Pop expressed sadness at the direction Luna's life, stating, "Part of her was born that way, just selfish and cruel. God, when I think of the unspeakable things she did to me at the end, framing me for 2 murders that she committed. She was going to let me rot in prison for the rest of my life." Poppy unloaded pent-up frustration regarding Luna on Finn, but he handled it well. He reminded her it didn't have to be this way, which prompted Poppy to point out the sadness Finn still holds about her death. Luna looked throughout the Spencer estate and called out for Bill. She threw on a baseball cap, which served as a flimsy disguise, before ditching her captivity to seek out her father. Brooke and Ridge couldn't think of anyone less deserving of a second chance at life than Luna. Ridge wanted Bill to keep Luna locked up, away from the outside world. However, Ridge, Bill's biggest critic, wasn't certain his #1 rival could follow through. Poppy acknowledged how much of a relief Luna's death had been for him and Steffi. Still, there was a part of him that felt connected to her because he was her father. He never got the chance to raise her as his own, thanks to Poppy, so there is some level of lingering regret. He reminded Poppy of her role in that, saying, "Maybe if I had been allowed to be in Luna's life as a child, had a hand in raising her, she wouldn't have turned out the way that she did." Poppy struck back, defending herself, telling Finn I did the best that I could under the circumstances." The tension escalated between the pair for a few seconds longer before boiling down Luna's time on Earth as tragic. Finn exclaimed that his wife was no longer afraid because of Luna's demise, and Steffi could finally come home without the threat of her hanging over their family. Electra's journey of self-pity continued for a little bit longer until Will called out to her from inside the house. She admitted she saw the messages from Will, but she didn't know how to respond. He couldn't take it any longer without seeing her. He understood distance is not the answer. He agreed he should have been honest with Electra from the beginning to give their relationship more of a chance to work things out. He apologized for everything, and she said none of his regrets changed the fact that Luna might be pregnant with your child. Ridge's blood boiled because of how easily it could have been prevented if Bill had never intervened. He questioned how he'd be able to sleep at night with the looming threat of Luna. Brooke assured her husband that she would help him through this. They both expressed a desire for Luna to be sent back to prison, but they have to wait for the paternity test results. Brooke listed ways they could protect Steffi from Luna, such as increased security. Back at Finn's office, Luna lurked outside his door, waiting for the opportune time to rock his world. With a baseball cap on and sunglasses as a disguise, Luna entered. Without looking up, Finn assumed it was one of his colleagues saying, "I'm in the middle of something right now, can you get Dr. Miller to help you out?" Luna shook the foundation of Finn's life, announcing, "Dr. Miller's not my dad." He finally looked up to see if his ears deceived him, but she happily greeted him with a sinister, "Hi, Dad." Will professed his undying love for Electra and begged for a second chance. Sadly, Electra revealed her heart was broken after putting it in his hands. The risk of love comes with highs and lows, with trust building over time, but the fiasco with Luna helped her realize what she wanted. She told Will, "I want to continue to build this together, fighting for us, and not letting anyone stand in our way. We don't know what our lives are going to look like from here on, but I do know that I love you, Will Spencer, forever." Will and Electra shared a passionate kiss in Eric's living room, which signaled their official reconciliation. Finn gets a heart-stopping shock at work, and Electra decides the fate of her romance with Will. All products and services featured are independently chosen by editors. However, soaps.com may receive a commission on orders placed through its retail links, and the retailer may receive certain auditable data for accounting purposes. At Forrester, Brooke and Ridge pace and agonize over Luna being alive and claiming to be pregnant with Will's child. Brooke's glad Taylor knows. Ridge states the obvious, remarking that she's worried about Steffi. Talk turns to Katie's assertion that Bill has things under control, which leads to Ridge ranting about him being to blame for all of this. Remembering the relief they all felt when Luna died, they wonder how Finn will react to his daughter being alive. Ridge grunts that he needs to stop trying to be father of the year for Luna, when was this? And be there for Steffi and their kids. As they go over the horror of Luna being alive, Ridge says he just wants her gone, he doesn't care whose child she's carrying. Sounds like they're setting up a Luna murder mystery. Will Elektra cave? In the design office, Will texts Elektra asking her to please speak to him. Across town, she holds the jewelry she made for her boyfriend, starts to respond to his text, but stops typing. On the other end, Will contemplates calling her, but decides to exit the office instead. Elektra's stunned when Will walks into the Forrester mansion proclaiming he had to see her. He gives a speech about how sorry he is, and Elektra nods. She knows he regrets not telling her, but that doesn't change the fact that Luna may be pregnant with his child. As Will pleads for another chance, Elektra explains her heart is shattered, but she's not ready to give up on them either. They kiss. What's Luna up to now? At Bill's place, Luna continues her unhinged conversations with her stomach whilst eating bonbons. She gushes about how amazing the baby's grandpa is, meaning Finn, and thinks it's time they let him know the good news. He's bound to be surprised given that he believes she's dead. Luna B&B. After grabbing a purse and calling out for Bill, Luna dons a baseball cap and takes off out the terrace doors. I'm going to go see my dad and tell him I'm still here. Who are Finn's surprise visitors? Finn, in his office, is surprised by a visit from Poppy. We're sure this is a setup for them to find out about Luna as she inanely reminds him that they're bonded for life and have a daughter together. Switching gears, Finn confides that he can't wait for Steffi to come home now that they don't have to worry about Luna. They go over how Luna got to be the way she was. Poppy complains that she must have been born that way. Finn lays into her for not telling him that he had a daughter, but is glad that Steffi doesn't have to be afraid anymore thanks to Luna's death. Later, Finn's alone in the office when Luna rolls up in a hoodie and dark glasses, peering in through the cracked door.